Hello and welcome to the Miscast table. My name is Mons, and tonight we're joined by a large group of people that we recently played a tournament with. But we're gonna start with some introductions, and I leave it over to Jonas to introduce himself.
Okay, so Jonas here. I had a Ogre Kingdoms army at the tournament. You know me from the Miscast table from previous videos if you have watched the channel. We are joining by the tournament winner, Christopher.
Thank you. My name is Christopher. I started playing fantasy, I think I was 13 years old, and I started with a high elf army. Then it had mostly been 40k, and after 40k, it was War Machine and Horde, which I played quite some tournaments with. And then we went over to fantasy, and there I played mainly Demons of Chaos.
We also have from Skellefteå Danny, which played an awesomely painted Bretonian army.
Thank you for the kind words. So I'm Denny. I've been in the hobby since 2004, I think it was. I kind of came into the hobby during 6th edition, which is still my favorite edition, I have to admit. So I play Bretonians this tournament. It's an army that I've had, I think, since 2007, and it just had been collecting dust for years until I started painting it. I think it was 2 years ago when I started moving everything over to Sweden, where I live now. I'm originally from the Netherlands, but yeah, we're here now.
There's been quite a lot of people that asking us to play 6th edition, and there's some people in Lycksele as well that plays. So you might find some like-minded people here.
That's interesting. I do like 8th though, but it's got a huge random factor to it. But that's a discussion for another time, maybe.
Yeah.
And then we have the tournament organizer. We are joined here by Mille, a staple at our 8th edition scene. Would you care to introduce your army and your ideas behind the tournament?
Well, yeah, I can. My name's Mille. Played the Beastmen at the tournament. I started in 2001, I think it was, with an Empire army, and since then I have built up a Dwarf army, and recently even an Orc and a Beastman army at the same time. The tournament have been a thing for a few years now, with some friendly battles to see who is the best general, comparing between the two towns.
It's a Northern Derby. That's perfect.
Yeah.
We should count in Skellefteå from now as well.
Yeah, and also now finding out there's a pretty big following in Skellefteå and even Umeå. It will be interesting for the future.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And you also have your co-host organizer, Christopher, joining us. You were playing a really interesting army this round. Would you tell us about your list and some things about when you started playing, Christopher?
Yeah, we could go back to the fantasy history. I started playing fantasy in 2007, I believe, with mostly borrowing other people's armies and then finally buying into Skaven right around the shift into 8th. But for this tournament, as hinted, I brought Vampire Counts and decided to go with... I started actually the list with the Morghast Archive. Just a big old blob of 4, because I own 4 and I've never gotten to play them before. And then I went, okay, I need at least one Terrorgeist. But I own a second Terrorgeist. So I put a Ghoul King in there. And after that, it was just like, okay, we need minimum core, and that's it. That's my army.
So double Terrorgeist is almost as disgusting as my double Steam Tank. Or maybe the same, I guess.
I'd say it's worse.
Yeah, probably.
Because the Terrorgeist is... it depends on what you're facing. Like, some armies don't really care about the Terrorgeist that much. If all of their stuff is ablative, like they have a bunch of just big units that can take the damage, it doesn't matter.
Well, I faced you this tournament with my Bretonians, and it was a very interesting match. It was very, very scary in turn 1. I remember you came over with your terror guys and you screamed at my paladin, pretty much just killing it outright. Like that was 100 points right there, just barking at him. I got lucky in that game, I think, with the direct hit of the trebuchet on your Ghoul King.
That helped.
That really helped.
Yeah, that match did highlight the other little thing I did with that list in the hero section, where I built the fear bomb vampire and put him in a fear bomb skeleton unit. So you have to take a fear test on 3d6, drop lowest, no reroll successful unless you have a BSB. Then there are no rerolls happening, and at -1 leadership.
Yeah, you had a good time with that. It was so
Always.
annoying.
And I started out with introducing Jonas and the podcast, I suppose. But I can tell something about myself. My name is Måns, and I'm the better half of the miscast table, and, or at least in my mind. No, but jokes aside, I was playing the Empire for this game, a double Steam tank list, and I've been playing the game for how long have we been playing, Jonas? Is it 3 years?
I think it's around there. Like, if we tally up the numbers, there seems to be like roughly 60 years of experience in this room.
Yeah, we've been playing. Most of us have been playing for a pretty short time in Stormanstensele, but it is a lot of fun.
How did you guys get into it? Considering that it's a quote dead game, how did you find out about 8th edition?
It was André, the chairman of our local association. He wanted something to do with his friends that didn't involve alcohol, and then he just Googled around for something to do, and he somehow, I guess, stumbled upon 8th edition fantasy, and he dragged us all into the abyss.
Yeah, it's quite persuasive. He just phoned me up one day and said, I have this Ogre Kingdoms army. I'm watching it. I think it was at Alpha Spel in Stockholm. And he said, I'm buying the start collecting box. Just send me the money. And there I was, starting my Ogre Kingdoms army.
Is that the army I faced yesterday?
Yeah. It's my very first.
Yeah, it was a fun army to face.
Yeah. And nobody seems to want to play it. I don't know if it's the aesthetics or if there's just like certain people appeal to it.
Well, I also have a ogre army, and so does Krille in our group.
I have one too.
Okay. So it's just me imagining things.
No, it's only you who's willing to bring it to a tournament.
Okay.
That might be the case. But talking about the tournament, do you guys have any special highlights from the tournament?
Well, highlights. I'm not sure if I should call it a highlight. That was the last game against Krille in the group against his demons. That was just a special match. Let's just call it like that. We had a very long deployment zone, so we were pretty much in each other's face.
Yeah.
And in turn one, I pretty much had his what was it, Krille?
9 beasts of Nurgle that I ran maximum speed just up to his face. So I was 6 inches away from his deployment line.
So pretty much right there and then, I pretty much had to commit my 3 lances into his Beast of Nurgle. And as you know, in Triple Crown, we Bretonnian players, we get devastating charge on all our knights units, which is super awesome. So we were talking about, I think it was over 60 attacks at strength 5, 6, and I did a total of 4 wounds.
That's really unlucky. Even with the marks of that's very unlucky.
And we're talking over 1,500 points committed to taking down these 9 beats of Nurgle, and you end up with 4 wounds. It's just like, I don't think I've ever seen a dice roll that bad.
I failed 4 armors, the regen saves. So it did more wounds, but I saved everything except 4.
Yeah, that was nasty.
But you are a numbers guy, so you appreciate how unlikely it is that 60 charging Bretonia's finest only deal 4 damage.
Yeah.
I did have my Mask of Slanesh that debuffed with -1 strength, but he totally shut down all my magic, so they were pretty much fully naked. No lower weapon skill or initiative or high toughness or anything. So I really thought they're like, yeah, I'm properly screwed now. But the goat sacrifice I did before we left apparently helped.
That's the reason you won. That's the key. Sacrificing a goat.
So, Christopher, do you have any highlights of your own?
Yeah, I got a couple of highlights actually. My first game was the game that was the hardest one for me. I did a huge mistake of not moving up my Beast of Nurgle. I should have forced them up 2 more inches, so I had more room to navigate my bloodletters. I was charged with 2 lances from the Bretonian, and one of those failed with, what was it, like double ones or something like that. I mean, you only had like 10 inches you needed to go or something like so.
This
But-
was against the other Bretonian player.
Hey, you played double Bretonia in 3 games. That's pretty lucky, I suppose.
So,
It's a fun army to play against. So.
yeah. But the initial impact with the Bretonian lance that came in was horrible, and I lost with point-wise so much that, like, on average, I would lose 3 more Beasts of Nurgle on just the first attack. And I managed to roll a double 1, giving everything back.
That's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, that's disgusting. And even worse, I did it a second time, the next close combat phase. Yeah, that's the highlight for me at least. The rest of the stuff is mostly the opposite of highlight, but still good for me.
Yeah, what was it again with the special sword on your great and clean one? What was it? 9 attacks at strength 9. It was just whack-a-mole with
Their
Bretonian
magical
knights.
sword that gives pretty much the whole stat line plus D3.
How many questing knights did he whack to death in one turn? Was it 8?
He had 8 attacks, but I think I killed 7 of them.
Yeah.
And I got
Yeah.
really lucky. I got really lucky with my lesser gift. So I got in D3 impact hits also on the Great and Clean one.
Nasty stuff.
I never played with the Mask of Slanesh before, and that is maybe one of the best heroes in the whole game. I
I
think.
thought it looked really cool when you explained it to me. Like over the game, you were playing against Danny, like mentioning all the things that it can do, like being able to shift whatever stat line, or like not whatever stat line, but the important ones: weapon skill, leadership, and strength. Around this is really impactful.
Exactly. It's like a free hex spell, more or less, and it's 3+ invulnerable save and movement 10. So it's easy to hide the model. Since we play with true line of sight, as long as the Beast of Nurgle is big enough, you can't see her behind them. So you need to have some shaft with shooting that can go around the unit and get her.
And she has a 3-up ward.
Yeah.
It's just gross.
And 3-up ward save with 3 wounds, that still means that you need to do like 9 wounds on them. That's
I
you
think
need
it
to
should only have
allocate.
2 wounds.
Only 2 wounds. Okay, that's kind of low actually.
Yeah.
So there are some downsides with her.
But it's movement 10, weapon skill 7, ballistic skill 6, 4 in strength, 3 in toughness, 2 wounds, initiative 7, 5 attacks, leadership 8.
5 attack.
Yeah.
And 140 points. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cheap. That's
It's,
underpriced.
the real drawback is just like, do not get this thing shot by arrows.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm not. You're not really that afraid of like cannons or trebuchets and stuff.
But it's
But
quantity.
like
that kills.
volume fire is gonna be horrible for her.
Yeah, 30 guys with bows, that's a problem.
Yeah. But then you have the Beast of Nurgle that just blocks the long line of sight. You need to have like, I don't know, Elysian Reavers or something like that.
Or just wood elves dancing around the table.
Yeah, but let's not talk about wood elves.
I'd imagine it's a hard time for you scoring points against wood elves, I'd imagine.
I think if you wanna like just demolish a demon army, use wood elves.
Yeah, I believe it.
Most of the demon units are so square that you can't maneuver fast enough.
Yeah, and that is probably one of the things that really impacted our games this tournament. Like it's hard when 8th edition kind of favors these horde armies, like, and when we play this scenario where we have the the deployment zone is restricted 9 inches from the side, and then you can deploy 15 inches forward. You get a kind of narrow deployment zone, so you kind of like tend to get your own units ahead of one another. It happened to me when I was playing against Danny in the first game. My Nobblers was in the way for everything.
Yeah, that was a surprising deployment when you did that. You were blocking your own, what was it?
Man-eaters.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was definitely a mistake. But it's hard, like there are so much terrain, and then you have like your own blocks that you need to take care of. And when the opponent gets like to push and dominate some, then you are really like how should I phrase it? Like you are really thwarted for space. Yeah.
Do you have any highlights of your own, Jonas?
Was probably like just playing Danny in the first game. I was so hyped for the first game, and then I got my spirits crushed. But I had a good time anyways. It was.
Oh no! Didn't mean to.
Yeah, that was a 0-20 game, right?
Yeah, it was a 0-20 game. But I had one chance, I think. In my mind, I had one chance because I was lining up my block of Slaughtermaster and Iron Guts and my BSP, and I had one shot at making the 10-inch charge against your Bretonnian Knights. And I think that if I had managed to make that unlikely charge, things could have been quite different.
Yeah, it would have definitely taken away a Bretonnian charge, especially in Triple Crown with devastating charge. That's just taking my sword away, figuratively spoken. That would have definitely been a very different game, but it didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen. Instead, I was left standing there dumbfounded and then looking down the charging ranks of 2 Bretonnian Knights of the Realms. And
Plus characters.
I've learned something about the Triple Crown at least.
Yeah.
Devastating charge is a thing.
That was my reaction as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
When he
So,
had
Christopher,
double the
tell us about your games with the vampire counts.
I mean, honestly, the highlight game it was the mirror at the end, just because playing like the same army with a lot of like the same tricks is always interesting. Especially like we both spent turn 1 just staring at the Terrorgeist on the table and going, so whoever moves up gets the Terrorgeist shouted to death by a Terrorgeist. Okay. and then he just Marcus just looks at me and goes, I'm so happy you took turn 1 so I don't have to think. Like my first movement phase was the longest phase in the entire game, probably. Because there was so much to consider between Hex rates and Terrorgeists and him having like magic dominance. It was a really fun little game. And my absolute highlight is in that game where... So Vampire Counts has a generic rule on all vampires called the Hunger. When you kill a model in close combat, at the end of the phase you get to roll a dice, and on a 6 you get to regain 1 lost wound. This never happens. This has never happened. No one has ever remembered to do this before. But I get in a grinder fight with my general on Terrorgeist with his Crypt Horrors, and it's just like, it comes up, I actually kill something, we get to the end phase, I roll a 6, big hurrahs, everybody cheers, everyone claps. Next combat phase, it happens again. Time has stopped. There's only me shouting randomly in a room.
I was joining that game lately, and then it looked like the 30th round of a slugfest. The skeletons were locked in combat with those, what are they, Crypt Fiends, Crypt Ghouls?
Crypt Horrors.
Crypt Horrors, even.
Yeah,
And nothing was dying.
How did that game end?
12-8 in Marcus' favor. After he finally topples the Terrorgeist after a couple of really unlucky rolls from my side.
Close game, though.
It was a very close game. I think my entire army was locked in combat from turn 3. I just did not have to move.
Same result as us then.
I actually played Marcus in the first turn of this tournament, the first game, and that man is absolutely cursed. I played against him the first match in another tournament in Umeå, and my rolls were absolutely horrible, and they were this time as well. It was awful. The first spell that I cast in the first turn in the first game, I do a 3 dice miscast where my level 4 wizard turns into a level 1 wizard. So I basically have no magic at all. And
this game,
yeah, that's probably my highlight as well, because that's the thing I remember best. And then he comes in with his Terrorgeist, and I get a misfire on my steam tank. So instead of shooting him, I cannot, and then I get just screamed to pieces. So that game was fun. I lost 0-20 there as well. All I killed was a small unit of dogs.
Oh yeah.
that was bad, but it's also a memorable game. It was really fun.
It's the thought that counts.
Yeah, I also had one turn where I rolled misfire on both my steam tanks and my cannon, and my cannon exploded.
Beautiful.
So yeah.
I kind of wanted you to tell the tales of the steam tanks. But
Yeah.
we know that they are a good unit. It's just that your dice rolls this tournament was, as you said, horrendous.
Yeah, but it happens, I guess. There were good moments as well, so it was a lot of fun playing either way. But I was a bit salty on the ride home, I have to admit.
I want to follow up the miscasting because my level 2 miscasted on 3 dice on the first turn against Marcus and lost all of his levels.
Oh, you did the same thing?
I did the exact same thing against the same opponent.
Yeah.
He's just cursed.
Yeah, Marcus is cursed. He's a lovely guy. He's really fun to play against. But he has some kind of curse with him.
It was a great match. I had a ton of fun.
Mille, would you care to tell us about your Beastman games? You were running really good in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, I had a pretty favorable to run against those 2 first games. I ran an Beastman army with a big Minobus and no wizards at all.
That's kind of like risky, I'd say. Like, magic is
Yeah,
a big phase of the game.
That's a brave man right there.
You had no shooting either, right? Or did you?
no.
No, there was only melee.
Yeah, if my Minotaur bus could get into combat, it will continue to go. In my first game, they had cleaned up most of the unit of hammerers, a unit of warriors, and then it was nothing left to fight after that. So, and in my second game against Vampire Counts, they ran into a horde. They got charged by a horde of Grey Guards. Did not get the always strike first, and I killed 28 of them.
That's rough. Graveguard is pretty tough as well, right?
Yeah,
Mm,
But they're fragile at times
Yeah.
when you get the impact hits and...
there's just a lot of them, generally.
yeah. Problem is the Minotaurs do not have impact hits. But I can see
They don't?
only the characters. For some
Only
reason.
character, okay. That's weird because they are like ogres,
Yes,
basically.
Yeah.
but only ogres have that, not all monsters.
Okay.
Since I ran with a BSB with the Beast Banner for +1 strength, all my Minotaurs swing at strength 6 with additional hand weapon. So yeah, it was a scary combat block.
Hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s, no save allowed. Yeah, that's a lot of dead Graveguard.
It's a lot of that everything.
Yep.
But in the third game, I was tabled because I didn't have anything left by turn 3.
Who were you playing the final game?
Gaven.
So Jon, he was also running really intense games. Like, I think all of his games were 20-0 in one way or the other.
Yeah.
So
Really?
all or nothing.
Yeah, I had 2 20-0s in favor and 1 0-20.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
He's pretty wild player. He's really fun to play.
Yeah,
He's a bit of a wild card player, if you know what I mean.
And then Skaven has its ups and downs as well. It's not a very stable army. You could
It's not.
easily run amok or everything just goes to smithereens.
Yeah, I got screened, so my Minotaurs got stuck, and then I was shot at and magic at, and yeah, I failed annoyingly much of my initiative tests I had to do, and it was a horrible end for the tournament. From my side at least.
we touch on 2 subjects that I think is worth discussing here. One of those is the importance of the deployment, like I briefly mentioned earlier. What do you think about the scenarios where you are either deploying 15 inches forward, or the scenarios where you're like the dawn attack one, where you divide the tables on the diagonal? The other point I want you guys to chip in on is if you think that melee or shooting is the stronger side in Triple Crown, or possibly magic if you think so, and how do you think it affects by deploying?
Well, magic in 8th is pretty strong, or very strong. You really want to run up at least on 4.
But that said, I do think that being able to get into melee quickly, then you are kind of safe in a sort of way. Like the augment spells are much more important there, but
I think that these kind of the deployments obviously favor melee, and I think that shooting lists are already quite weak. So when you shorten the deployment zone, the shooting lists suffer even more. Because when you have like a 15-inch, you can have your Minotaur boss on the other side in one turn, basically. And any shooting list is screwed at that point. So you need like a list, like a round or two to soften them up.
I think for a tournament, you should have a bit of both, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think there should be like one scenario where you're a bit more closer to each other. I mean, you can always choose to deploy as far back as possible as
Thank
well.
you.
And then the other two games, if you're talking about the 3-game tournament, they should have more normal deployment, like the 12-inch deployment zone. Personally, not a fan of the diagonal deployment.
The diagonal one is it just pure annoyance to try.
Yeah, it's a bit wonky.
From my perspective, I'm pretty sure I won this tournament for the pure reason that we were so close to each other. With movement 6, I can be in the face, and also facing Bretonias, where the knights are like a huge ruler, so they can't get any farther back. So there were no chance for my opponents to go around me at all. And when it comes to magic, at least for demons, is very, very heavy, because I really think you need to play with a level 4. I usually play quite a lot with a pure corn list with no magic at all. And even though I have magical resistance 1 or even up to 3 in some cases, that doesn't help me from all the hex spells and buffs and debuffs. It only helps me from the damage spells, which are pretty rarely used, to be frank.
Yeah, it's almost like only the really nasty spells that you're careful of, like the Purple Sun or the Pit of Shades. Like,
yeah, and magical resistance doesn't help against those ones.
But damage spells kind of suffer from the same problem as shooting. When you need to kill an entire unit to get the points, it's kind of hard to do that with only shooting or only magic. It's probably better to do it in melee, beat them, and then overrun them.
Sorry, to go back to the question about deployment zone, yeah? I just have a final thought on that for myself. I think that if you want to play with shorter distances between each other in the beginning, I think you should go for the what's the scenario called, the Battle of the Pass, because then if you have a shooty army, you have the option to deploy further back.
Yeah, that is in my opinion at least, like rarely played scenario, but it's quite fun.
I'm just thinking a bit ahead because that's a different discussion. But you know, we're thinking about organizing a tournament here in Skellefteå as well. So we try to learn from each other's scenarios and what went well and what went a bit less well, so we can set up something nice.
Yeah, and I think a variety in the scenarios and the deployment zones is very, very good, because a winning army should be able to handle like many different scenarios.
Yes,
in my opinion. So.
Which is where I want to come in on that whole what is the strongest thing. For the deployments, I do think deployment is probably the most important thing you can do once you arrive at the table. What happens after deployment is generally barely as important as your deployment, unless you're doing the strongest thing you can do in the game, which is being highly mobile. Being able to apply precision damage, not necessarily tons of damage, where you need it, to outmaneuver your opponent and deny them scoring points.
Guerrilla, like wood elves.
Wood elves, dark elves. Yeah, that's
I know that you CF like the dark elf, the Dark Riders is a favorite of yours.
Yeah, one of my the last tournament we had up in Stansela, I brought a points denial style dark elves list, whose only real combat unit was a Hydra, because why would you not bring a Hydra, and a single block of executioners. Everything else was fast cav or just tooled up to just get away and do what needed to be done, or a shooting unit to stand far back like a bolt thrower, or like minimum helping to pad out the minimum core with a little bit of repeater crossbows.
That makes sense. I've seen we have a friend in our group, Jonas, who plays a similar sort of army with lots of fast cavalry and what are they called? The Doomlock Warlocks?
Doomfire Warlocks.
Oh god, those are
the best wizards in the game.
Monster's favorites.
Yeah, it's easily one of the best units in the game, like period. In my opinion, they are so.
No, you're right. You're absolutely correct.
and they have great heavy cav as well, like cold one knights. When you
Yes.
feel them, they are so
I
strong.
don't like them.
You don't like
man,
them?
they are so good.
I don't
I
think they're.
love them.
I just look at them and go, I just don't. I just don't like cavalry. I don't like heavy cavalry.
Ah, okay. Yeah, but that
I
makes sense.
take
You just make
offense.
No, listen, if they gave devastating charge to Cold White Knights, we'd be talking.
Yeah. But this tournament that we played, it was a triple comp tournament. And at least we in Stensland, Storuman Lycksele have been playing some, both triple comp, we've been playing Swedish Crown and on uncomped as well. What are your thoughts on the different like comp systems that there are in 8?
Oh, I love it. I love Triple Crown. Yeah, I do. I think it's. I've tried Swedish comp, this building and stuff. I tried the ETC comp in the Netherlands. I tried some. Now I have to tap into the memory bank. I'm not sure what it's called, but from the ones that I've tried, at least I think Triple Crown so far has been the easiest to use. It's not very restrictive, so you can take kind of what you want. But if you cheese it too much, you're gonna get punished, which I like. And what I also like is that they kind of reward you for taking units that on paper aren't per se the best choices in the army book. And I think that is really fun because you get to play and you get to experiment with units that you otherwise might not take in your army list. And that I do really like.
Like I think also Triple Crown is probably the best I've played, but there are some problems as well. I know like the Minotaurs, you get plus for bringing Minotaurs instead of minus, and you also get plus for great swords. So there are some hits and misses, but in general, I think it's a good system.
I mean, I agree completely. But I'm up and down on Minotaurs. I think being a Beastman unit that can't ambush is a bit of a drawback, and I think Empire Greatswords are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Toughness 3, 5+ save, great weapon. They're in the same game as like White Lions and Executioners,
Yeah,
and
but
they cost as
stubborn,
many
stubborn.
points.
Yeah,
I think the big thing with them, as Jonas is about to say, I suppose, is the stubborn rule, which means when you play something cav heavy, you can hold something for a while you get in your cavalry in the sides. I think that is the great strength.
But you have to spend so many points for that bunker to hold.
Yeah, I guess agree to disagree on that point.
I'd rather just take like 2 units of something else, like front and back.
But it's fair to say, I think that Triple Crown, I think it felt really natural yesterday because if you look at the end result of the tournament, it felt that most armies were quite near each other. And that means that somehow it kind of hashed out the imbalance issues that you have in a vanilla game.
Sample size is a bit low. But I will say that I think one of the biggest advantages of Triple Crown is it is very easy to understand.
Yes.
You can look at the Triple Crown's comp document and go, yeah, okay, I like this. There's +1, there's -1, there's +2, there's -2. I think one of the biggest downsides of Sweet Comp is the math.
It's a bureaucratic system. You have to take a lot of time for it. It's annoying, I think.
Me personally, I think that Swedish comp was way more fun making a list for, at least as a demon player. But overall, I'm not really that into the systems that are right now. I would like probably have less stuff that gives you minus. I'm totally into like giving hard minuses to big expensive blocks, and maybe instead have pluses for like units that are normally not fielded at all. Like there's a lot of special characters that never get fielded, like the Demon's Karnak, the Devil Hound, and stuff like that. And another thing I've thought about is like a unit can be like it can be good but not broken, but you break it pretty fast when you put in like a lord and a hero into it. There should be maybe some type of balance there also, maybe.
I feel like 8th edition is probably better when people are taking more combat characters and less wizards anyway.
I just wish that there were more room for like shooting characters, because you never see a character that has like a superb ballistic skill and a great medical ranged weapon.
That's because those only exist in Wood Elves.
Yeah, but that's like my point. They aren't there, and
Yeah, you have the great monster hunter in the Empire. What's he called? Wolfheart or something. He's awful. He's awful.
Flavor-wise, is really cool. Games-wise, ugh.
Yeah, this is like the same people put that guy at like what is he, 200 points?
Yeah. And he has extra damage
no.
against monsters or something.
140.
Yeah. He is
Still-
140, and let me look at it. How much is a great cannon? 120?
Yeah, yeah, he is pretty bad. But someone touched on I don't remember who said it, but this like you have like these big blocks, and I think the one thing I do like from Suicomp is that you get quite restricted in the unit size.
We should play 6th edition.
Yeah, I suppose.
If you like cavalry, 6th edition is your game.
Yeah.
But I think that the Suicomp deals a little bit better with the large blocks. That is.
I'll agree with that.
yeah,
That
I think
I
so.
can agree on.
The scalability on different amounts does feel nice, but that's also the problem with Swisscomp. It becomes really math heavy when you need to tally up everything and check your boxes twice. Like, how many knights do I bring?
As Killa was saying, can be a very it can be a fun game within a game to build a list that like balances out these things and gets a good comp while still doing the cool stuff. I get that. I just think Suicomp is a bit heavy on it.
Let's be honest here, though. The Triple Crown comp that we used yesterday and that we used in Umeå has already been altered. It is the
True.
Swedish version of the Triple Crown system. And I'm thinking now to myself, we are, what are we now? 4 or 5 communities here in northern Sweden that try to come together more often. Nothing stops us from altering that comp system ourselves a little bit.
Agree.
If we think like, this is such bullshit, or this should be fixed, or that should be less harsh, or nothing stops us from altering that rules book. Yeah, I'm just thinking like, just put your heads together after we've done this a couple of times with this rule book, and then maybe we can smoothen it out together at one stage.
One last thing about the comp system. What do you guys think about the added rules for certain armies, like Devastating Charge? Everyone seems to agree that it's a great addition to Bretonia.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think it's great because, and not just for Bretonians. If you look at Beastmen as well, they get the free marks.
Free marks, get to use the ambush, the much better ambush from End Times, Glotkin.
Yes, I think it's because they have such old army books and not in particularly well written or good ones that hold on their own during 8th edition, especially against newer army books that have gotten much more love than these armies. I think it elevates them a little bit better to actually be able to stand their own in an environment like this. Because I think if you would have played vanilla Beastmen or vanilla Bretonians, that they would not have done as good as they have done yesterday.
No, without the Devastating Charge, I don't think they can handle the current meta or the newer books.
No, I agree.
And from a Beastman player's standpoint, I would have a much harder time with both my Minotaurs in close combat because they don't come with any sort of save. So, like that -1 to hit in close combat is quite needed. And same for my 2 ambushing gore blocks.
No, I really get it. I think it's a very fair addition to an army. It makes sense as well. They are the pinnacle of cavalry in the Warhammer world, so they should have an impact when they charge. Maybe not as against the Beast of Nurgle, but you know what I mean. Don't get me wrong, though. Bretonians can hold their own vanilla without any help from a comp, but it's much harder, and the list building that you do is much more restrictive. They become, if you pardon the pun, quite a one-trick pony.
Bretonia knights are so special because on the shard they are like almost like a glass cannon, but still with really high armor. But as soon as they get stuck into the second round of close combat, they don't have enough damage output, so they mostly turn into just a high armor tar pit.
I want to hear your thoughts about like terrain, because I think terrain is a very like underused part of the game. Most people use like terrain just to like block line of sight and stuff like that. But there's so much magical terrain and so many fun rules for placing terrain and also the building fighting that is rarely used at the tournament scene. Do you think that you should use more of the terrain rules than we are currently using it in the Swedish tournament scene?
I think we should play with more terrain because of a whole range of reasons. But first of all, you have terrain with a lot of different rules that makes it just more interesting and maybe a little bit more random. But you can all, if we mush in a little bit more terrain, it is gonna stop people, not stop them, but gonna need to think twice about bringing those huge blocks. Like if you have 25mm models and you're gonna have 10 on a line, if you have terrain, that's gonna be a problem.
Yeah, the thing, as long as we're not talking buildings, the building rules is horrible in 8th.
I think there's some of the best rules in the game. Building fighting is amazing.
Buildings are awesome.
Buildings are awesome.
Well, at least Triple Crown do have at least the
limiting factors.
The limiting factor, like maximum of 20 wounds.
I think cramming 80 skeleton warriors into a single building is fine, actually. And losing at most 1 per combat sounds like a good and fair
That's
stubborn as well.
That's not
Who
fair
cares?
in any
The
way.
skeletons!
Time for combat. My ogre, like an ogre unit.
Oh
would
god,
be,
don't talk. Oh.
That's like, okay, I get to fight with 3 ogres.
But most of the time, like when we play here in Storuman or like the miscast table guys, we a lot of time we randomize the terrain.
Yeah.
We roll on the table and we get magical terrain and we get all of that stuff. And I think that's so much fun because that impacts the game so much.
I have done it a few times with CF, and sure, it's fun, but you will have to have a good way to actually mark out what that terrain is doing in that game in some way.
Yeah, my biggest point about it for the tournament scene is, do you want to be randomizing terrain before every match? Because that will add a lot of time.
On tournaments, I think it's a big no.
Yeah, I do like it in casual matches. I think it's a really fun thing to do.
Yeah, and then also like the building rules, it gets really clunky and it will absorb so much time and hassling during a game. You already are so limited and stressed during a tournament game. At least that's how I feel.
I think it would be fun because then you could make a case that heroes would play a bigger role. Like you would perhaps need to have a good hero to clear out a building, or it might like push different kinds of lists if you are knowing that you are playing a. But that said, as you mentioned, there are races and armies that have wholly different capabilities when it comes to occupying buildings. Like the undead, they are a problem.
And like ogre kingdoms, just like they see Watchtower on the scenario list and they cry.
Yeah, what you can put there is like Ignoblers, right?
Yeah, the only thing you can put there is just like goblins, but worse. And none of your guys are good at getting people out of them, outside of bringing enough iron blasters to kill literally anything.
Yeah, cannons in the building is horrible when you're the target of that.
Man, I'm gonna go with CF on this one. I think they're fun rules with random terrain and buildings, but I think they're more suited for casual play, not tournament games.
So we've been doing the rounds on the tournament, giving our takes on everything. Do you have any closing thoughts? What are your current projects and like ideas going forward with tournaments up here?
Yeah, I really want to hear about what kind of projects people have going on. That's always fun.
Well, I actually bought a house Friday.
Oh,
the day
congratulations!
Does that count as a Warhammer project?
Yeah, actually, yes.
Space for more miniatures.
Yeah, it's got a huge basement, and I convinced my girlfriend that it's going to be my man cave. So I'm going to build an epic wargaming room, hopefully.
Yeah, where we filmed the miscast table, that is in my basement, and I'm also gonna have two rooms dedicated to it. So.
Ooh.
No, but that's my project. Will be my house, and for hobby related wise, it will be my man cave. That's really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Hopefully we get invited sometime to play.
For sure. And yeah, of course, we've also been talking about kind of feel that it's our turn as well to set up a nice tournament for people to come and visit. So we're just trying to think about where to do it.
Yumio was it was so coincidental. Like right after we played the tournament and we got home, you started posting about it. Then they hosted a tournament, like 1st of
Yeah,
April.
I was
think
also
it is.
surprised. I was like, what?
Perfect timing.
Yeah, and it does have some weird rules, however. I think they are like experimenting on something.
Yeah, I have a feeling they don't like single flyers, like eagles, and I have a feeling they hate cannons.
You all don't see what I see. They hate Skaven.
They hate
They hate the rats.
I'm going to be. I need to explain why. Because max magic level 3 means that you do not get to bring a Gracier.
Are they always level 4?
They are level 4 flat, and I this is probably actually just an oversight, but they are level 4 flat because it's a 7th edition book.
Oh man.
Isn't that a huge problem?
The Gracier is the best lore choice in the book, and it's maybe the Vermisiers, but they're also out. They are also level 4s, and they're also over 400 points, so they are very much not allowed.
That's not even close to demons.
Oh yeah,
Max 400 points. I can't have a great and clean one. I can't have a keeper of secrets. Bloodthirst is just barely 500 points. No Chaos Fate Weaver, no Plague Farger. Lord of Change I can take, but no Scarbrand or anything. So the only level 3 wizard I can have is a blank Demon Prince.
and he is terrible in that book.
Yeah, and no cannons or units that shoot like cannon. If that also includes grape shots, then I can't use the siege chariot. I can't use the corn chariot.
No, that one is actually just a cannon.
Yeah, it's not a cannon. It's a chariot. Very important distinction.
The skull
It
cannon?
shoots like a cannon. So.
The skull cannon of corn is not a cannon.
I'm so glad that they wrote in that description or units that fire like cannons.
Yeah.
It's just a chariot. And the Iron Blaster is also just a chariot.
Yeah, just the chariot. Not at all the best cannon in the game. Does anyone else have any fun projects that they're working on?
I'm also 3D printing a lot of stuff right now.
For a new army or for the demons or?
No, I just want to have maximum of everything in the Demon's army so I can play whatever I want.
Well, I'm continuing painting up my armies. I started up with my bunch of dwarf warriors and the rest, most of the cores that I had left to paint. Then I have also dabbled a bit more into 40k.
I think 4K seems kind of fun right now. I wish I could get into it, but it's such a fantasy is so fun right now.
Yeah,
It's booming fantasy.
40k has too many fucking rules.
yeah, that would be a problem if you want to get into 40k.
Holding my fingers crossed for old world.
And when fantasy players say that 40k has a lot of rules, you know it's legit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also feels extremely imbalanced from what I've heard. Yeah.
To be fair, 8th had a fair bit of that too. It's just that we don't feel it anymore because that's 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Shout out to Monstrous Cavalry. This was not a design mistake, we swear.
I don't think Mornfang was a design mistake.
I said Monstrous Cavalry. You said Mornfang.
I don't know whatever you mean.
Other than that, I have list here for what's not done.
I mean, that's not. I still feel like that's just all the models that you own that don't happen to not be painted.
That is correct.
See, I have a lot of models that aren't painted, but my list of models that I feel like that I'm gonna paint is like, I don't know, maybe 30 models from Malifaux and a bunch of Warriors of Chaos models.
Yeah, that's a big difference, right? The have to paint and want to paint list. I have that same problem with Bretonians. Actually, for this tournament, I painted those questing knights because I normally would not have used them, I think. So I was actually a real fun motivator this tournament to get them finished.
Yeah, I use the tournaments as a motivator quite a lot.
Yeah, it's
Here in
like
this
a deadline, so you can force yourself to sit down.
Yeah, I have an entire unpainted Tomb Kings army, and I'm thinking about maybe playing Tomb Kings the 1st of April. So I have that project going on. And I think I'm gonna do it really chariot heavy. So
That sounds really cool if you can make it happen.
yeah,
What's-
hopefully I can. They're quite easy to paint if you have an airbrush and you go like contrast paint in the airbrush. You can go it pretty quickly. Yeah, I'm also building a like Asian inspired table in my basement as well for fantasy, with a large river in the middle and a temple and also a hot air balloon.
That sounds cool.
It's gonna be amazing when you get it ready.
Yeah, but it's still a long way to go. But I'm getting there slowly.
Yeah.
Looking forward
And
to
you
it.
have to make like custom terrain rules for that table when you get it ready.
So, question: what do you guys think about playing with unpainted models on tournaments?
I think we are at the stage where it's fine if you get penalties to it, because then you put like a friendly reminder onto everyone, like let's make this happen. It's more fun for everyone, and if we invest into the hobby. But I think it's also kind of like shooting yourself in the foot. For every player that we don't get to a tournament, it is a loss for the community as a whole, I think.
In the Netherlands, we used to run tournaments. If you had models, or if a majority of models in a unit weren't painted or only undercoated, that unit would get a -1 in leadership for being naked.
Yeah, you
And I
mentioned that.
think that's a fair thing, you know, and it's the majority of the models in the unit that needs to be painted. So it's not even everything, but I think it adds something to
Yeah, and that isn't. It doesn't seem too harsh
punishing.
of a punishment.
It's more of a wink, like get your shit done for the tournament. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but I agree the stuff should be painted at the tournament. But I also agree with Jonas that you shouldn't like penalize new players. So maybe you could like exempt new players from those kind of rules, because getting more people into the game is great. And if you just start out like painting an entire 2,500 point army, that
a
could
lot.
easily take a year, easily. And you don't want to exclude them at that point.
As a grey plastic and white metal enjoyer, I honestly don't care. Like either way, which is just like if I have to paint for a tournament, I will paint for a tournament, even if I end up doing it the night before, as it has been tradition many times during my life.
Yeah, I know that. I can
Yeah, you're
vouch for
sitting there
that.
next to me as I painted 2,500 points of Skaven in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Do you
Yeah,
have any
yeah.
current projects, CF?
It's Chaos Year, baby!
Chaos year.
I'm getting this Warriors of Chaos army done. I'm starting a Slaves to Darkness army for Age of Sigmar. It's all gonna be metal and leather and Frank Frazetta posters all over. We're listening to power metal from now to the end of the year.
sounds like you got a plan. What about yourself, Jonas? You got anything on your painting?
I'm probably the most boring. I'm trying to like panic paint my Ogre Kingdoms until the Dollarslaget tournament, but then I'm learning Blender for the channel. So trying out some 3D stuff.
He has made some amazing animations that have not
If
hit
you
the
were born in
channel
the late 70s, like
yet.
and
That
when
would
you're
be
around,
great.
when
I
Amiga
love
came out.
that. Do the like early 90s 3D stuff because I fucking love that shit.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of I said it when I saw it the first time, that it reminds me of Heroes and Might of Magic. It reminds me a lot about that, the animation that you do. It's great.
I'm going for the Dark Omen style. It's
Ooh, yeah. I mean, Heroes of
it's-
Might and 3 Dark Omen, that kind of style fits with the fantasy vibe.
yeah, but it's a learning process. I don't know why, but somehow my brain enjoys it. So
Yeah, and we're gonna keep up the streaming as well. We're gonna try to do one game every week. Both get better and improve the stream quality. Like I love making like improvements to the stream and the setup. So.
but it has been real nice chatting with all of you.
Yes.
So
It was fun.
I
Yeah.
wish you all the best. And does anyone have any closing thoughts?
And to say thank you to participating in the tournament. It was great. Always
Yeah.
fun to meet new people.
It was really well organized and nicely set up as well, and there was even coffee, by the way. That was really nice, nice as well.
There was coffee.
Yeah, nice touch. Nice touch. Thank you so much for Mille for organizing.
But with that, we wish you all a good evening, and then we'll catch you in the future.
You too.
Yeah.
Take care, guys.
Thanks,
Merry
guys.
Christmas.
Take care.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.